Hello and welcome back to Trans Voices in Conversation, the podcast where we give insight into the lives and careers of some of the many talented creatives we at TVC have had the pleasure of working with. My name is Misia Butler. I am an actor, writer and producer with TVC, and I will be your host for the series. I'm joined here by 3 people today, so that's very exciting. We've got Amy Kemp, Harrison Knight again, and Rosa Hesmondhalgh. Hello to you all.
Hey!
Hello. Hi.
Hey!
Well, we've already sort of had an introduction from Harrison in our first episode, so if you want to know more about him, listen to that. But I think we should have
Wow,
introductions
thanks.
today.
Yeah, we'll gloss over that one.
You can have a little one. You can have a few lines added to your introduction. But should we start off with our 2 proper sort of ally guests for this episode?
Let's do it.
Amy, would you like to give us a bit of introduction to who you are, your pronouns, and the things you do?
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Amy Ann Kemp, full named. My pronouns are she, her.
Oh yeah.
What do I do? What do I do? Well, I'm the producer of TVC with Harry and Mish. Whoop whoop. And yeah, I just produce. I'm a theatre maker. I'm applied theatre practitioner. I'm just about to finish my degree, which is exciting, in drama, applied theatre and education.
Very exciting.
Cheeky plug. I'm also a lesbian, which I think is quite central to my creative practice, which I could probably go into later, but like that's something that is like quite embedded in my work and the work that I do, especially like LGBT work. So yeah, that's me, a theatre maker stuff.
Lovely, thank you. And Rosa?
Hello, I'm Rosa Hesmondhalgh. My pronouns are she and her. And I am an actor and a writer. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it to those 2. I feel like there's always like a tail end of things you could add to that, but I think I'll just keep it succinct for this particular
You said that
introduction.
so much more succinct than I did.
But I think yours was more interesting, actually. I have no degree to finish, sadly. but yeah. So my lockdown is just kind of lots of playing. You might not be able to see this, but I've been playing lots of my Nintendo DS.
Lovely.
So I could get a degree in Zelda, maybe.
Why not? Let's do it. And Harrison, your turn. You get a little plug. Keep it succinct, like Rosa.
My name's Harrison Knight. I am the artistic director of TVC. I'm a so-called actor. I sing a bit, and I'm straight.
Love it. So today is an episode based around allyship, and we've got 2 of our close friends here. I mean, well, 3 of my close friends, but 2 ally close friends here to talk about allyship and what it means to be an ally, especially within this industry, like how different people can do their best to be allies, whether or not they know trans people out there. So yeah, Amy, you talked a bit about kind of how your identity affects your creative process, and obviously being part of TVC, you're involved in that too. Would you like to talk about actually how you got into working with Harrison to start up TVC?
Yeah. So me and Harrison worked on projects. Previously, I was producing a sort of rehearsed reading at the Other Palace, and that's how we met. And then I can't remember if it was Robin Samoys da Silva or you, Harry, but I think it was Robin got in contact and said, "Oh, we're interested in producing this cabaret event." And I remember it like it was yesterday, honestly. We met in the Hampstead Theatre, we sat down, had a coffee, and you pitched the idea, and I went, I'm in. Not really knowing, not really knowing much about the kind of legacy of TVC and it being in America, but we briefly talked about it in the kind of conversation, and I was sort of asked to come and help to produce that in a kind of practical sense and what that might look like. And that's kind of how it started, and it's just gone on from there really, and it's bloomed into the beautiful thing it is now, and we're nearly at our 1-year London anniversary, which is so exciting.
Exciting.
That's
exciting.
crazy. It's been a year.
It is crazy.
What the hell?
It just feels like yesterday when we were sort of waiting apprehensively in the bar of the other palace and going, oh gosh, is anyone going to turn up?
That first night, we were like, no one's going to come.
And I think it was like a week before, and we'd sold maybe like 5 tickets, and we went, oh, what have we done? And then it just sold out, and it was so beautiful. And I think, yeah, it's just been such a wonderful process. But that's how it started, and it's just grown quite quickly, really.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and both of you, in terms of, obviously, for you being friends with trans people and just being around trans people, having them in your life, there is a certain extent that you'll be like, probably, I don't really know what I do, maybe, in order to be an ally. But is there any way that you clarify allyship for yourself?
I think for me, it kind of, I don't really know what order it came in. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like I was like, I'm going to be a really good ally, I better go and get some trans friends. Like, I don't think it didn't work like that. It was more, the more that I started to kind of understand and meet people who were in the trans community, and the more I started to realise like how important allyship was, as well as, you know, the basics of being a friend. Like, there were different things, like more things that I wanted to do. And I guess the main thing has always been for me is just to kind of listen. Like, there's still so much that I don't probably understand or know, but it's like understanding and realising that that's actually okay. And it's like, the more you listen, I guess the better. But yeah, that's for me, I think.
Yeah, I think listening is this feels really strange as well, because I'm normally in terms of TVC stuff, I'm normally more behind the scenes, and I think that's been quite a deliberate choice. I'm just looking at Harry, but like that's we had conversations quite early on about, you know, this is a trans company and it's, you know, representing trans talent and platforming trans talent. And to be honest, I had big worries at the start of like taking up space. I think that is something that I had to really consider. And like, even we had big conversations about whether I do a little announcement on the stage during at the end of the show to say thank yous, and what does that mean if I'm in that space. And I think it is about having those conversations, like, fundamentally, because practically my allyship has grown through TVC, because yeah, like you said, Rosa, you have to stop and listen, and sometimes acknowledging that maybe a space isn't yours, and that's fine if you're there to facilitate that. Like, I see my role in terms of producing with TVC very much as like facilitating a space and making sure that space is as comfortable and as safe for those people to exist in, and that is super important. But yeah, it is about listening and having those conversations, and you can only grow from that. And I think allyship is really important to me, which is why I mentioned being a lesbian, and specifically that word, because I think there is a real discourse of tension, is like a loose way of saying that, I suppose. But like, there's a real tension between LGB and T, especially L and T. We've seen, you know, with the Pride movement and the kind of TERF and the hate groups, and allyship is like important to me generally, but as a lesbian, I think it's even more important to be vocal about your allyship and be practically doing something, because it's really important, especially now when there's, you know, the trans community are under fire and we have to look after our friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And Harrison, for you, is it similar, or like with your clarification of what allyship is and what you need as a person? Do you feel the same in terms of, obviously it's from a different perspective, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've always felt like, and I've said this before on various platforms, that the breakthrough for the trans community will be from our cis allies. It will be led from the cis people, because they have more power. Certainly in terms of, if we spoke in terms of theatre, and we definitely sort of spoke in terms of casting and production, that trans visibility will be because the cis people give us a chance, because trans people are not in power in the industry at the moment, and actually, I mean, if you're not in the industry, you might think that the actors have so much power, but that's just so totally not the case. Like, we're almost the bottom of the rung, I guess, and there's hundreds of people above us that have all that power, and trans people are just not there yet. And to facilitate us getting through that will be the cis people. So get on board, guys, because we're great people.
Oh, we've lost Rosa.
Oh, Rosa's
Come
gone.
back, Rosa.
Rosa. She's so upset.
All is forgiven.
She's gone. Not for me.
she's
not
back.
for
I knew
me.
I knew this would happen to me. I knew I would be the one who froze in the middle of a really important discussion. I was like, no, it's getting to. Come on, Rosa, come back.
So aptly timed.
To be fair though, it's also like fine because it was Harrison's stream that was, you know, speaking. At least it wasn't halfway through your kind of.
Everything I've just said about listening, and then I just log off and disappear.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
dear.
Well, actually, kind of like on Harry's point about cis people making change from different points and actors being not necessarily the most powerful in that process. Obviously, as you know, writers and producers and stuff, there's a lot of controversy around producing and writing stories as a cis person that are about trans people, which is a constant struggle because there needs to be that obviously authenticity to that experience and to that story, but at the same time, as Harry said, we need that movement forwards, don't we? So I was just thinking about your thoughts on that controversy.
I think the first episode of this podcast that I listened to with just you guys, I thought it was very interesting and useful for me to hear like the way to go about it, because I know that for myself as a writer who is cis, and a lot of my cis friends who are writers who are also allies or trying to be allies and trying to know more, sometimes it feels like maybe there's a lot of a struggle to know how to go about it, and like not wanting to come across as ignorant. And I think that's the biggest block with so much of this stuff, is that a lot of people don't want to embarrass anyone, embarrass themselves, or get it wrong. And actually listening to you guys talk, both like off the record and on it, on the podcast, is that actually just sit down with trans people and ask how they'd like to be represented and what needs to be done. And like Amy was saying, sometimes it's not about you claiming credit and taking up the space as a cis person. Sometimes it's about you using your privilege to kind of step back and let other people kind of take this story. So maybe you've decided as a writer you want to write a story about trans lives or have a trans character. Maybe it's about being able to relinquish some of that credit and actually giving a voice to a trans writer instead of writing it yourself. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting kind of perspective on it, because a lot of people are like, that automatically, as soon as you're writing those stories, that you have to be in the limelight as the cis writer and the cis producer, whatever. And there's almost, I suppose, more of a emphasis put on those people, which by the controversy around it, and then conversely giving them more of a platform than the people who need that platform. It's an interesting kind of thing that's going on there. Do you guys have any thoughts, Harrison or Amy?
Well, it's something that Harry said actually about kind of... what did you say? It was really good and I can't remember. About...
When did I
all
say
the time. You say brilliant things all the
Constantly.
time. I just love working with you. Never leave. But I think... oh gosh, it came and then I praised you and then it went... No, he said it's about,
happens
it
a
does
lot,
happen a lot.
not gonna lie.
Like you were saying about cis people are in those positions of power, and actors don't necessarily have that power. I think there are so many different ways to like change the narrative, but obviously like structurally there are issues in terms of theatre, in terms of hierarchy, which is very patriarchal, very heteronormative. And also if you're not, I think it's that thing of, if you can't see other people like that yourself in those roles, does that make sense? So if you can't see yourself in those roles or don't see any representation in those roles, it almost makes it harder to not believe that you can do it, but see yourself as a writer or as a director. That it makes it harder.
definitely.
because it doesn't feel like a space that you can claim. And I think it's about allowing people to have access to education, to learn those skills, access to opportunities, and realising that they don't have equal access from the get-go. I think we often talk about equality and all of that, but actually we should be looking at equity and how we are actually structurally already not equal just from the get-go, and how as allies we can play a part in just making things more equitable for people. And that doesn't have to be, you don't have to like do the biggest thing and like stop transphobia across the world, but if you can do that, go and do it, because that'd be great. Do you know what I mean? But it's those small things, like Rosa said, like having conversations that, you know, I think this podcast is such an amazing tool for people to listen and to just have a resource to access to information. And there's so much out there, but I think it is about making things seem accessible and helping to facilitate that. Like, I think the word facilitate's really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's also making sure we don't go too far the other way, where we then don't get anybody writing anything because they're too scared to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like, you know, if you get to a certain point where a cis writer might say, well, I'm not even going to attempt to write for this selection of minority because I don't want to get it wrong. Because then we're still losing the visibility. It just needs to be, as you say, facilitated in the correct way. I know certainly at the moment, both me and Misia are working on The Danish Girl. And we've already come across some people that have said, well, you know, these writers maybe shouldn't be writing this particular play. But actually, I don't know what Misia thinks, but from the start, we have been involved in dramaturging, and these cis writers would say that, you know, they have a privilege and they have a platform already to give visibility that both me and Misia can't do on our own. So, and they don't mind giving that to a community, to a minority. So surely we should be jumping on those opportunities and helping them through it. So as I say, it's not making sure that we don't go too far the other way as well.
And I think there's that kind of element of, obviously both of these writers would not sort of say that, you know, that they wouldn't be shouting out going, oh, look at me, look how sort of good I am by doing this. They're so, you know, they're being very humble about it, and the fact is that we are there to facilitate this very high profile thing that could change the careers of a lot of people, and that's what we're trying to do with it. And using that privilege in a positive way. It also comes into intersectionality, I think, and I think that's a super important word that we have started to, or maybe not started to, but we've never really acknowledged in our communities, because I think with every single person there will be so many layers of intersectional kind of privileges and marginalizations, I suppose is the word, that will, you know, interweave. Me and Harrison have talked about the fact that we are very privileged within the trans community because of our social status or our education status or our, you know, passing privilege, our white male privilege, you know, all of those things. And seeing how those can layer onto each other within the creative industries is really important. I know that, Rosa, we've talked about it quite a bit because you've talked about in your writing the idea of interweaving those and how you can explore that. Do you have any thoughts on kind of intersectionality in allyship? I
mean, it's something that I think is so important, and again it goes back to how little I feel that I know. I feel like I'm still at the beginning of understanding and getting to know how important it really is, and actually I think the more and more I learn and the more I pick up, the more kind of confident I feel that, like, it's okay to know absolutely nothing. So it's been really great to have, you know, a really open dialogue with you guys, with Robin, and being able to talk so openly about what I don't know, and I would love to be able to write and use my privilege as a white cis woman to kind of write for lots of voices that should be heard, and also I think should be seen by a kind of a wider audience and maybe a majority cis audience as being very important. And that, like you say, it goes across all walks of life in terms of class and race and, you know, gender. I think it can be really easy to assume you know a lot of stuff about that as a privileged person, because your privilege allows you to be maybe think you're more knowledgeable. I don't know, but yeah, it's something I'm very happy to be taught by you know, about a lot of this stuff by the people who've actually experienced it.
Yeah, and I think there's also something that you touched on in there that's quite interesting, is the idea of knowledge of facts and information versus the sort of empathetic inner knowledge of actually what these experiences are. Do you guys have any, I don't know, I suppose advice for anyone out there who might not know any trans people or any queer identities at all that they know of, and finding out about not just the facts of, I don't know, you know, the suicide rates, which are quite, you know, depressing facts often out there, but actual trans stories?
I was, when you were talking about intersectionality, and I think you touched on something really important, that within every individual, even if they exist within the same community, they are an individual and they are so different, so we can't generalize one group of people's experiences. And I think that's a really important practical space to start in when you are thinking about engaging with a community or getting in contact, because it is really easy to get into those quite what's the word, like sad narratives or quite scary facts and figures of, you know, suicide rates and hate crime and transphobia, and it's really easy to get into those narratives. So when you approach that community, I'm talking about it like it's a practical thing, but like when you do that, you sort of have there's not really like an emotional or like an actual connection. It's more of a kind of surface level thing. And I think one of the practical things I would suggest is, and it's really hard, especially in this industry, but remembering that you are not the expert and you don't know, and you are there to learn, and that's really hard, I think, because in the theatre industry and in the creative industry, you want to be seen as confident and knowing and really engaged and practical. So then actually to enter a space and be like, I don't know, and to really not place your own lived experiences and your own things onto that is actually really hard. But I think that's more of a mental practical tip that I would say, just and also always be curious. Like, I mean, me and Harry might have a conversation about something and then 2 weeks later something might change, and just because we've had one conversation about it doesn't mean then in 2 weeks later something is different. And you know, it's about acknowledging that you're never going to know everything, because that's okay, because that's life. But that's a continuous process. And if you are wanting to engage, you know, and meet trans people and understand their stories, understand that story isn't like, they're not going to tell you and then it's done. That person is a person and they're living a life, and that life goes on for however long it's going to go on for. So you're going to grow with that person, I guess. And just being positive and curious, but like in a really kind of sensible way. Like, you know, if you were trying to make new friends, you wouldn't suddenly ask them their whole life story like on day one. It's something you have to acknowledge, that like, just even if it's in like a creative capacity, but working professionally with maybe TVC as consultation, if they haven't engaged with us before, we have to build that relationship.
And
I think, do you have anything to add about that? Oh, sorry.
No, please, Harry.
No, Rosa, you go for it, because I don't know what I was going to say.
Yeah, Rosa.
I was literally going to just pop in that, like, in the industry side of it, if you want to kind of, you should just support trans and non-binary made work, like, and follow, you know, members of TVC and other trans artists on Twitter. That people have YouTube channels, people have, you know, their ways of making art, even like Etsy shops. Like, there's a way to kind of get to know what's happening in the trans community without, you know, going down, like Amy says, a route of asking someone their life story in the first hour of knowing them. And that's just a really great way you can also kind of provide some allyship that is, you know, supporting artists, not just the fact that they're trans artists, but support their art, and let other people know who might not know about it, because that's another way you can use your privilege and your platform to kind of shine a light on some really amazing work that's being done.
And I think just jumping on that with Rosa, like, if you really do want to tell certain stories or create certain pieces of work, then collaborate. There are so many artists and there's so many resources. Just send an email, get in contact, start a conversation. I think when you're writing or creating something that maybe isn't your lived experience and isn't something that is not your world, you have to be collaborating with those people, and that can take many different forms depending on what kind of creative position you're taking. But I think there has to be an element of collaboration, and it has to be mutual collaboration. It's not just I'm getting them in for a chat and then they go. It's not just a one-off consultation. It's embedded within the process of making. And by embedding it in the process of making from the start, you create a foundation for making work that's so sustainable and is actually platforming it in a really constructive way. Because you can collaborate and platform in a way that is not constructive, and we've seen that, you know, across the industry in the past year. There's so many cases to name. I'm sure, Harry, you could do much better than me, but it's about collaborating constructively and doing that from the get-go in a way that you're equal to each other. In that partnership. Yeah,
and I think that we're getting to a stage where we're being brought, not we, but trans people are being brought on as consultants for damage control rather than for actual decent learning experiences.
Which is muddy water, that's muddy water.
It's really dangerous because people will see through it, trans people see through it all the time, and you know, it's stop using us in that way. Actually, use us for what we can, the good we can do, and the good we can do for you. If you know that you're bringing us on for damage control, then why? Surely you're already ahead of the game. That you think something might blow up. That already, you're already questioning your work. It's a bit of a dangerous position to be in. Actually, you could just put the effort in and just do it properly.
Yeah.
It's a bit blunt, but you know.
To a certain degree, there is that simplicity around it, isn't there? There's a point where you just go, if you're not engaging with trans creatives when you're telling, not even just when you're telling trans stories, but when you're, you know, if you're not engaging with the idea that trans people exist when you're telling stories, I think that is when you're in dangerous territory.
And like, also try and get suitable trans people for what you are doing.
Yes, that's true.
So there's some amazing charities out there, but they're specific to certain things. You know, there's not one lived trans experience. And you know, if somebody said to me, "Oh, I really need help with transphobia within my accountancy sector," I can't help you with that. Like, get somebody that can do that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, you know, use the right trans people for the right.
Is that something that you guys have experienced with people being like, you're trans, so you'll know how to deal with this thing?
Yeah.
Right. My God. Okay.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
And it's. Or could you come in and speak to this group of people who are, you know, doing something to do with archaeology or something? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it is true that, I mean,
we can help you find the right people. There's no problem. Like, we can help you then find the right people. But I
had a really interesting conversation actually as part of the podcast with Teddy Lamb and Tigger Blaze, and they were talking about consultancy and the position that they've been put in. Well, I think it was Teddy who mentioned sort of, you know, sort of trans people of colour and things like that, and the importance of just going, as Amy and Rosa, both of you have said, just being like, actually, I don't know everything about this subject, so I'm going to pass it on to someone who does. And that networking as well, I think, is a thing within allyship, whatever allyship you're doing, it is an overlooked element of it, because we always think, oh, we just got to find that one person, you know, the token trans person, the token gay person, whatever, to tell us everything about the subject. Whereas the intersectionality means usually they don't know everything.
And I also think in terms of the LGBT community, we're often put in that position for most of our lives. Sometimes we're in the world of our friends, like I know growing up, but in the world of our friends, we're the only gay person they know or the only trans person they know. So we become, for a lot of people around us, that sort of point of information. But actually, in our heads, then we get used to doing that. And actually, for LGBT people generally, I think it's time we kind of went, actually, I don't have to emotionally, I don't have to go through this emotional labour of being your sounding board and being your token friend. Like, that's not fair on us as individuals, and we can't represent a whole community. We just can't. It's not possible. Like, we're and that's kind of the beautiful thing about the community, though, because we're all so different, you know.
And it does become exhausting.
Yeah, it's so exhausting
when you're constantly having to do it. And I think Robin Samoys de Silva made a really good point on the podcast, episode 2, saying, you know, we're almost doing 2 jobs. Then we're being an actor. If it's, let's say it's a show, we're doing your acting work for you, and we're also being a consultant. But often we're only getting the money for being an actor. So we don't mind consulting, but, you know, just have a little think about whether you could maybe bring on a consultancy fee as well, because it does get exhausting to constantly do it. Whereas if there's some sort of element of, actually, you know, I might get something out of this, then...
Yeah, because it feels a bit like, okay, I've signed up for this life. And I think a lot of the time there's this kind of thing with coming out, with especially with parents. You know, you hear it in a lot of parental narratives where they go, oh, you know, I just don't want you to be this object of fascination, this object of ridicule and things, and I don't want you to always have to take that on. And it does sort of feel that way, where you kind of go, okay, because I'm now identifying this way, I suddenly am this font of knowledge, and I have to constantly be this. And to be fair, for myself, and I know for a fair few people out there, I'd rather that people did come to me as that font of knowledge, because I have that network behind me, which is very stable and very supportive. So rather than asking all those invasive questions to someone who might not have as much stability as I do, is better. But at the same time, as you say, Harrison, it can take a toll when it's in every single aspect of your life. You know,
I would agree with that, in that idea of, I'd rather someone came to me and I took that on than somebody went to an 18-year-old who's just transitioned and is mentally unstable. Like, I get concerned sometimes with castings, actually, where somebody is this sort of fascination over transitional storylines,
right?
And then we want the authenticity of that, and then I get really scared that they're going to cast somebody that's mentally right at the beginning of their transition and is then playing their own life out on screen. It really scares me that they're not going to cope with it. This fascination over constantly, it's always transitional storylines, and a lot of us can't actually play that anymore either. So that gives you a very small group of people. Yeah,
it's that kind of element of one-dimensional, whatever identity. There's usually like the coming out story for gay people, or rags to riches in terms of the class kind of divide, and that's the kind of only facet of those identities that you see on screens. And I suppose as writers and producers and things moving forward, that's the biggest allyship change that we want to see, isn't it? Yeah,
I would agree with that. Yeah,
and
make us well-rounded people.
Yeah,
I mean, we were talking to Annie Wallace earlier today, actually, and she was saying that yes, I had to do that trans storyline, but actually now I'm a head teacher, and that's such a great role. That's an actual pillar of the community, which we don't get very often with trans narratives, where they're really important people in their community. They're always seen as like the other, or so those the good characters are also quite helpful.
Yeah.
To have like decent meaty characters that aren't just, it's just not always about their identity.
Yeah, I think I when I was at the vaults with you two and Robin Holdaway, and you guys were being like, I'm really boring. I'm really boring. There's all these like really dramatic storylines. Like we're being hurled left, right, and centre. There's cry. I'm really boring. Like let's do something. Let's do a bit of art about that. About like how I sit in my house and what I do then. Like yeah.
Honestly, it's true. I'm so boring.
There's that level of like, I don't wear all these like crazy, cool, very, very outlandish costumes going out every day, and I don't. Well, to be fair, I did go through a lot of hair colour phases as a teenager, so maybe I'm fulfilling the trans stereotype in that way, but there's a lot bog standard about me. Yeah, no, carry on.
No, I just think that's really interesting in terms of like, I think we talk about like there's queer theatre and there's some amazing, bold, incredible work going on. And that's totally fine. And it's also totally fine to make queer work, or not identifying it with that label, but work that is quite mainstream and normal. Like, it's important to have a mixture, because I think
absolutely
making sure, as Harry was saying, we're having well-rounded characters that have the opportunity to play lots of different facets of life, because that is a reflection of the world. Trans people aren't just doing one thing, and like
like I think people have this idea that we lead a different life.
Yeah.
Like I get up from my trans bed, I go down and have trans breakfast. Like no.
Yeah, definitely.
Why is a trans bed?
Wouldn't you like to know?
Ooh, coming soon on the next podcast.
It's getting steamy on this podcast.
But yeah, I think it's important that like there is just a range of representation, because reflecting real life, and all of those are okay, and it's okay if you have a theatre company that doesn't want to do cabaret, but also it's cool if you do want to do cabaret. Like we should have everything, and it should be of equal accessibility. Completely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think there's a general sense of ideas within the industry. I think people like following trends. They see something works and they go, oh, we've got to carry on doing that. You see it in typecasting, you see it in kind of, I don't know, repeated basically like storylines in multiple different TV shows at the same time. You're like, okay, well, I've seen that TV show. And it is that thing of like, oh, this works, so let's just do it. And people aren't as comfortable, I think, taking the leap and going, let's just try something different. But that's when good new art happens, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
that's all. That's all the sort of questions I had out there. Do you want to go on to the quiz section of the podcast?
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
do I?
Oh yeah.
Well, Harrison's sort of given us a different setup for this quiz.
You know what? I thought I'd just shake it
Ooh.
up.
Shake
I love
that
it.
shit up. Just because none of
There
us
we
had
go.
swore yet,
The
so I just
swear
thought
word.
I'd be the first one to throw a shit in there.
Well, I thought it would be difficult because there's 4 of us, and I feel like we should all be involved in this.
Yeah.
That we have each written 3 questions each for the other 3 people.
Yeah,
So we should end up with 3 questions per person,
Yeah.
fingers crossed.
potentially.
So exciting.
I love a
Okay,
good
do you-
quiz.
should we-
Isn't it?
Shall we start off? I mean, on my screen, the first one is Amy, so I
Oh,
think we
gosh.
start off with Amy.
We have to explain that these answers begin with T, V, or C.
Yes.
And if you haven't grasped why that is yet, then
Welcome
luck to you.
to the
Do your
podcast.
can't deal with you.
Oh,
Amy, go for it. Give us your 3
Oh,
questions.
no,
Wait.
wait, aren't
To
we
each
giving
man.
our 3 questions to Amy?
Fine, let's do it like that then. Yeah, all
I
right
am
then,
very
Lee. Off
scared,
you
and
pop.
I didn't think I'd be going
All
first,
right.
but I'll take the challenge. I'll embrace it.
I sort of catered my questions to each of you, and I think this is, well, I mean, not massively, but just slightly. They're slightly relevant. You mentioned that you were that you identify as a lesbian. So this is about the L word.
I love the L word. Okay, full disclosure, I'm in love with this quiz. Give me all the questions. I love the rerun. I love the original. A bit problematic, but I still love it. All good. Fire away.
Okay, so my question is, what is the name of the Mexican-American character in the L word, the original L word, played by Sarah Shahi?
What?
Solid.
Is it T, a V, or a C,
You'll
Amy?
see. I can give you a clue.
Yeah, give me a clue.
She is in a relationship at some point with Shane.
It's Carmen, isn't it? Carmen?
Yes.
Yes.
Carmen.
Wow.
Ding, ding, ding.
Woohoo! I was
Deduction.
like, is it Carmen?
mate.
Because I thought you might go for a Tina Bet question.
Oh, hello.
There we go. She knows everything.
I
All right,
love that.
Harrison, give Amy your question.
Okay, mine's also sort of like directed at you, but totally not the same way. So mine's more about theatre.
Okay.
I've gone for which theatre in the West End currently houses a comedy about a bank robbery and showed the 39 steps before that.
Shit. Okay. TV or C?
Do you need a hand? I can tell you where it is in the
Is
West
it in
End.
Piccadilly
Would that help?
Circus?
It is in Piccadilly Circus.
See, I'm a visual person, so I know visually where it is. It's not the something, is it, with the T?
No, no, it's not a T. It could be though, but it's
The Cane? The Victor? I don't know.
I think that's
So I tell you,
Yeah.
who knows? Does anyone know?
Is it the Criterion?
Oh.
It is the Criterion.
Hey.
I wouldn't have got it, but that was a good one.
Thanks, mate.
All right, Rosa, your
My
question for
theatre
Amy.
knowledge is bad.
Okay, this is another theatre-y one. So, Thomas Lanier Williams was the real name of which legendary playwright?
Oh, I know that.
I don't think I should be in this industry anymore.
To be fair, I didn't know this. I just googled it because I came up with the answer first because of what it began with, and then I looked for fun facts
Yeah.
about it.
That's what I did for my question for you, Rosa.
Thomas.
Just the say the name again. That might help.
Thomas Lanier Williams.
To be fair to you, Amy, I have no clue.
Do you know what?
shall I-
I've got.
Oh, I thought that was quite obvious. Is it not?
What's obvious? The answer.
Yeah.
Is this
Shall
a
I-
woman?
Shall I reveal it?
Please do.
Shall I? Can I guess
Yes,
it?
of course you can. Of course you can, Harry.
Is it
It
Tennessee?
certainly is. It's Tennessee Williams.
Yeah.
I should know that. I
Yeah.
should know that.
No,
I didn't, so there's no
It's okay,
shit
don't
here.
worry everyone, I will resign from theatre. Don't worry, I'm gone.
Oh, I can't do it without you. You edit these things
Oh
together.
yeah, gosh. We're a team. Collaboration, everyone, see? That's how it works.
Collaboration, which begins with a C.
All right,
Who's next?
you're next, Harrison.
Woo.
I have a question
Okay.
for you.
Okay.
Okay.
What is the surname of the trans actress who plays Nomi in Netflix's Sense8?
Cameron,
No.
isn't it? Isn't it Jamie Campbell?
No, close. You're
Jamie
so close.
Ca
You're really close.
Jamie. Oh, no.
Can't.
Is it not?
I
Oh,
don't know this.
It's not Campbell.
No, because you've said it 4 times and Misha keeps saying no.
Are you sure?
Are you sure it's not Campbell? What about Campbell?
Jamie. I don't know. Jamie something.
Amy, did you know?
No idea.
You seemed like you sort of got excited there, so I thought you might know.
No,
It's Jamie Clayton.
Clayton.
Oh.
Very close.
Tip
So
of my
close.
tongue.
Never even seen Sensei,
It's a very
so
good
I'm
show.
quite happy I got the first
Yeah,
one.
yeah, well done. Amy, what's your question, Harrison?
Okay. Excuse me while I get the question up. Harrison. Jonathan Larson, who wrote Rent,
Yeah.
also wrote
Yeah.
which musical?
Tick, tick,
Oh,
boom.
so easy!
Wow, straight away.
I love Tick Tick Boom.
I don't
Oh,
actually
it's
know it.
beautiful. Beautiful.
Another
Oh, I'm happy I got that one.
TVC collaboration.
Is it? That's quite classic that I would get
Yeah, a musical.
get the musical
On
theatre for
brand.
not the trans actor. Honestly.
Hashtag on brand. Hashtag TVC.
Yeah. Rosa, and your question.
My question for Harrison is, my Auntie Julie, friend of TVC, has
Yeah.
a brief cameo in the 1994 film Pat and Margaret. The film was written by which TV comedy legend who sadly died a couple of years ago?
Because
You'll kick yourself.
you're his biggest fan.
Can you tell me if it's a T, a V, or a C?
It is a V. I can reveal it is a V.
A V? Oh, I know what it is. Is it Victoria
It
Wood?
certainly is. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
All right, 2
Very
out of
good.
3. Well done. You're currently winning because Amy only got
Oh,
one.
great.
Rosa, I'm learning so much about you.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. This is what these things are for, is it not? We're all learning about each other.
Absolutely.
It's about listening and learning.
It's about listening. Oh God, now listen to me fuck
love
up these
this.
questions.
Great.
I'm ready.
All right. My question for Rosa is, which famous Russian playwright was also a physician who was said to treat his patients for free, earning money from his writing
I almost
instead?
did that question
Really?
Is it
for someone else, yeah.
is it Chekhov?
That funny.
Yeah, it is. The only very famous
Beginning
Russian
with a C,
playwright that
I think.
everyone knows.
Yeah.
Amy, that was almost your question
Yeah.
from me.
All right, Amy, your question for Rosa.
Yeah. Okay. What do I call? What famous film remake released last year features a father-son relationship that is cruelly destroyed by an evil uncle?
The Lion King.
Yeah!
Isn't
Well done!
That's amazing.
Oh my god!
Oh, I'm so
I
proud of
questioned whether
myself.
Scar was the uncle. I couldn't remember, but I thought I'll just throw it in.
He is the uncle.
Yeah.
Well
it's the Hamlet
done.
thing, isn't it? Yeah.
That's very good. I wasn't thinking that at all.
Well, I thought Hamlet first, and then I was like, oh, I don't think that's
Yeah.
what works. Sorry, Misha, go on.
No. I was just.
It's me.
Next
Oh.
question.
Sorry, of course it is.
What is the name of the actress who started her career playing Rosalind in As You Like It at the RSC in 1962, won a BAFTA Fellowship in 2010, was part of the original cast of The Inheritance in 2018, and is the narrator for Call the Midwife?
Oh, I know this.
Oh God, I don't know any of this. Is it? It's not Celia Imrie, is it?
It's not,
Okay.
no.
Can you tell me what letter it begins with?
Yeah, I can. It's a V.
I feel like it's probably. Is it someone called Victoria? I just don't know who.
No, it's not actually.
Yeah, surprisingly not.
What? Are the, so sorry. So give me those facts again. Rosalind in As You Like It.
She was Rosalind in As You Like It at the RSC right at the beginning of her career in 1962. That might give you a little hint of how old she is. She won a BAFTA Fellowship in 2010. Was part of the original cast of The Inheritance.
That's the reason I know it.
And is the narrator for Call the
Oh,
Midwife.
for my sins, I didn't see The Inheritance.
She's part of a very big
and I don't
acting
watch
dynasty family.
Call the. I feel like I'm really going to kick myself, but just give me the answer.
Misha?
Vanessa Redgrave.
Vanessa
Vanessa
Redgrave!
Redgrave.
Oh! If the pressure hadn't got to me, I probably could have worked that out at some point. But yeah, very
Literally the
good,
only
very
reason I knew
good.
That was because of The Inheritance.
Yeah, of course she was in that.
I don't
yeah.
know any of the others. So that's 1 out of 3.
No, we haven't done you yet.
Yeah, no, but
Misha.
you're still winning, Harry.
Is that it?
I think.
Boo, boo, boo.
I got 2 out. Did I not get
Yeah.
2 as well?
Did you get? Oh no,
Did
yeah.
I not? I
You
got
2, you
Amy's.
2, you
Yeah.
got 2.
Yes.
So I'm
Yeah, yeah.
losing and you're all
Yeah.
winning, essentially,
Yeah.
is what's happened here.
So if I get all 3, I win.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Well, let's see, shall we?
Exciting.
Let's see.
Who goes first? Should we just go the order that I've done it already? Amy, go first.
Okay, I might phrase this weirdly, but here we
Okay.
go. What is the first line in the song One Short Day, spoken just before the actual song kicks in on the original Broadway cast recording from the musical Wicked? So the song One Short Day, just before they sing One Short Day, what does Alphaba say?
Oh
That's
my
a great
God.
question.
How am I supposed to? Oh, I do know this song, but
I've got a line in my head, but it doesn't begin with. So I think I've got it. I don't know it.
I'm so pissed
What
off.
does it? What letter does it start
C.
with?
Yeah, C. I thought it would start with C.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just like wait. So Alphaba says it.
Yeah.
It's not like the bit where she's like, "Come on, we're gonna be late for Wizardmania" or something.
Not
That's in the song.
quite.
That's during the song, isn't it?
Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, I'm not gonna know.
She goes, "Come with me to the Emerald City."
To the Emerald
Yeah.
Damn it.
That was a great question.
Good
So I haven't
effort
won.
though.
But okay. Well, yeah, I knew it was like a cum. I knew it was like.
There was a
with me.
cum.
There was a cum. This is a family.
This is the dirtiest podcast we've ever done. It's because
I
I'm
don't
here,
get
isn't
it.
it? I'm terrible. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. All right, Harry, give me your question.
This is about your favourite playwright.
Who's my favourite playwright?
Tennessee Williams, isn't it?
Slightly concerning then. Maybe it's not.
Right.
In which Shakespeare play?
Well, yeah. I mean, he's pretty good.
Thank you. In which Shakespeare play would you find the character Miranda?
That's The Tempest, right?
It is the Tempest.
That might have been the first Shakespeare I ever saw on stage. I think that I remember.
Oh wow!
Mm.
Was it the Patrick Stewart one?
Sat in my heart. I actually, it was so long ago, I cannot remember. It was a. I don't think I remember anyone famous being in it. It was just like a kind of generic, you know.
It was the Patrick Stewart one where he had a really awful wig in it.
No, he was bold in it. Mariah Gale
maybe it was-
played Miranda. It was really. It was one of the first things I think I've ever seen on stage. It was dead
Really.
good.
I saw Patrick Stewart in something where he had a terrible blonde wig.
God.
He was playing. Maybe it was Julius Caesar. I don't know. Anyway,
All right. Well,
Rubbish.
Rosa, your question.
My question for you, Harry, is I'm going to give you
no,
Wait, it's
not
for
me.
Misha. Sorry,
The same person.
I've done that twice now. I've been like, right, okay, it's your question now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a definition, and you have to give me the word. Okay. So the definition is a harsh, discordant mixture of sounds.
Harsh, discordant mixture of sound.
Harry is like, I know
Harry
this.
definitely knows this. doesn't he?
I know this.
Oh.
My orchestra brain knows this.
Discordant-
It's a really nice word to say.
Oh, I think I know what it is.
Oh, everyone knows but me.
Oh, it's a
Mish.
nice word to say.
It's a harsh, discordant mixture of sounds. And it's
Yeah.
wait, which letter is it? Just give me a letter.
It begins with a C.
Okay, I
What
don't
began
know.
with a C again? Damn it. Doesn't help me. No, it's not there.
Would anyone else like to
Failed.
answer? Go on, Harry.
I think Harry would.
Cacophony.
Yes, correct.
Oh, that's so
See, that's why I said
good.
I'm going to ask you this, Harry, because I knew that Harry would actually be the one to... It was so up his street.
You might as well have asked it to me anyway.
Well, me and Amy are matched, and you and Harrison win, Rosa. Well done. Round of applause.
Yeah.
I'm so glad
Amy
we
add
came
in a
joint
round of applause.
second, Mish.
Yeah.
Woohoo, with
Second
1
rate.
point.
I'm just not used to being the one having to answer the questions. It's so stressful.
The tables have turned.
Isn't it? And you put that pressure on
So
us.
we've thrown it right back at you.
This is a revenge plot.
Collaboration.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure, an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having
This
me.
was so
I
nice.
loved
Thank
it.
you.
And lots of really
Great.
interesting things that we talked about and touched on, and things I think that I've almost learned through just talking about them that I think I didn't really
Absolutely,
think
same.
of before. So that's great. It's always great. Well, I'll leave it there. Bye bye.
Bye.
Let's stop our recording.
Oh, bye. Love you.